Welcome to Living Beyond the Invisible, A Walk with Heather. I'm Heather Perrin, and this is the space where we will pull back the curtain on life with invisible disabilities. Each week, we'll explore the realities of chronic illness, the challenges that often go unseen, and the strength it takes to keep moving forward. Whether you're living with an invisible disability yourself, supporting someone who is, or just wanting to understand more, you're in the right place. Let's take this walk together. I am so glad you're here with me today. Before we get started, I'm going to do something new. This will be on all of my episodes going forward, but I want to let you know two things. One, a little disclaimer, I am not a medical professional. I share my experiences and advocate for those living with invisible disabilities. The information I provide comes from my own personal experiences, research that I personally do, and stories that others in our community share with me and give me permission to talk about. Nothing here is a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. If you have questions about your health, please consult a qualified medical provider. And number two, I do have ADHD and brain fog from fibromyalgia. So that means my brain may just quit on me. I may forget words. I may stumble over words. I may completely forget what I was saying and have to take a minute. Give me some grace and bear with me. I have been editing those out in the past, but honestly, I feel like that is a disservice to our community because that's life with ADHD, that's life with brain fog, that's life with invisible disabilities. So, with all of that said, let's get started with today's episode. Hey everyone, welcome back to Living Beyond the Invisible, A Walk with Heather. If you've been walking this journey with me for a while, you know we've covered a lot of ground. Everything from chronic fatigue and medical gaslighting to the emotional toll of friendships fading. But today, I want to talk about something that's been on my heart for a long time, and that's faith. Specifically, how we find purpose in the pain when we're living with an invisible disability. Now, we've touched on faith before in small ways, moments where hope feels fragile or when we talk about pushing through another flare day. But this episode feels deeply personal and really necessary because faith is often what people turn to when they can't make sense of suffering. And yet, when your body or mind feels like it's betraying you every day, that relationship with faith can become complicated. For some of us, faith has been our anchor. For others, it's been a source of confusion or even anger. We may find ourselves asking, why me? Or where is God in all of this? And if you've ever been there, if you've ever sat in that tension between belief and brokenness, you're not alone. I have been there more times than I can count, and honestly, more times than I would like to admit. So let's start by naming something many people with invisible disabilities experience but hardly ever talk about, and that is spiritual exhaustion. This isn't just physical or mental fatigue, but the deep weariness that comes when you're trying to hold on to hope while life keeps handing you setbacks, while you are trying to just hold on and push through. People often say, God doesn't give you more than you can handle. And while that's meant to comfort, let's be honest, it doesn't always help. And he never really said that. He will never give you more than you can handle with him. He will always give you more than you can handle on your own. But with him, it is not too much. But let's be honest here. Some days, it does really feel like way more than we can handle, even with him. Some days, we're not just tired, we're soul tired. And pretending otherwise doesn't bring healing, No, 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 no. It brings guilt. It brings shame. It brings all the things that are negative. Faith for many of us has to evolve. It can't stay the same as it was before illness or before diagnosis. The neat, tidy version of faith that says, if I just pray hard enough, I'll be healed, doesn't always hold up in the face of chronic pain, cognitive dysfunction, or fatigue that no amount of sleep can fix. And yet, in that space where everything feels uncertain, something sacred can begin to grow. I remember someone once saying that faith isn't about having all the answers. It's about continuing to walk even when you can't see the road ahead. For those of us living with invisible disabilities, that walk is often slow, messy, and very uncertain. But maybe that's the point. Maybe faith isn't supposed to look like perfection. Maybe it's about persistence. Maybe it's about trust. Because faith doesn't mean you never question, never cry, or never feel angry. Faith is choosing to believe there's still meaning even when the pain doesn't make sense. It's waking up on a flare day when your body feels like it's filled with concrete and whispering, I'm still here. That whisper, that's faith. And let's talk about purpose for a minute, because this idea of finding purpose in the pain can sometimes feel heavy, even unfair. People often tell us everything happens for a reason, and I am so sick of that saying. Really, I am. Because if you've lived with an invisible disability, you know how complicated that phrase can feel. You know how dangerous that phrase can be, to be honest. We don't want to romanticize suffering. Pain is not a blessing. Illness is not a gift, and yet the resilience that grows out of it can be something holy. It's not that we needed to suffer to become strong. It's that we didn't give up when life got hard. Finding purpose in pain doesn't mean pretending everything is fine or that you're grateful for your condition. It means recognizing that even in this, especially in this, you still matter. Your life still holds meaning. You still have something to offer. For some, that purpose shows up in advocacy, helping others who are walking a similar path, like I am doing. For others, it's in creativity, in storytelling, in faith itself. Sometimes purpose is found in quiet moments, not big actions. The way you comfort a friend who's hurting, the way you still find beauty in small things, the way you keep showing up even when no one else sees the effort it takes. Invisible disabilities often make people feel unseen, but God sees. And that truth, for many of us, is what helps us keep going when we feel forgotten by the world. The Bible tells us in 2 Corinthians 12:9, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Now I'm going to be honest with you. I used to wrestle with that verse a lot. Because let's face it, weakness doesn't feel good. We want to be capable, to be strong, independent. But over time, I've learned that maybe it's not about celebrating weakness. It's about recognizing that grace fills the gaps where our strength runs out. Living with an invisible disability means constantly facing limitations, physical, emotional, mental. And those limitations can make us feel less than, especially in a society that prizes productivity and perfection. But God's grace says you are still enough, not because of what you can do, but because of who you are. Some days that truth is hard to believe. I know it. Especially when your symptoms flare and you can't get out of bed, or when you cancel plans again and feel like you're disappointing everyone around you, or when you have to call in sick to work because you just can't make it. Those moments can make faith feel distant, but faith doesn't disappear just because you can't feel it. Sometimes it just sits quietly, waiting for you to remember it's still there. And maybe that's the lesson hidden in the pain. That faith doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers. It's the steady reminder that even in your weakest moments, you are never alone. Many people with chronic or invisible illnesses talk about how their faith communities don't always know how to respond to their reality. You might hear well-intentioned people say things like, just pray for healing, or have you tried believing harder? And while prayer and belief are powerful, I'm not saying they aren't because they are, faith isn't a formula. You can pray every day and still have a chronic illness. You can love God deeply and still struggle. The problem isn't your faith. It's with the assumption that faith guarantees a certain kind of outcome. True faith holds space for mystery. It says, I don't understand this, but I'll keep trusting anyway. And that's not weak faith, that's resilient faith. There's a story in the Bible that often comforts me. The story of Job. Job lost nearly everything. His health, his wealth, his family. His friends questioned him, accused him, told him he must have done something wrong. But through all of it, Job never lost his honesty with God. He questioned, he cried out, he wrestled with the unfairness of it all, and God listened. That's something I think many of us need to remember. God isn't threatened by our questions. He's not disappointed when we struggle to understand our pain. If anything, that's where true relationship begins, in honesty. For a lot of people, invisible disability brings isolation. We may not be able to attend church regularly or volunteer like we used to. We may miss out on community events or feel left behind by the pace of life. But your faith doesn't live in a building. It lives in you. Faith can look like quiet prayers you say in bed when your body won't cooperate. It can look like gratitude for the few good hours you get each day. It can look like forgiveness for others, for yourself, even for the situation you didn't choose. And just maybe, it can look like hope. Not the loud, unshakable kind, but the fragile kind that keeps showing up anyway. If you're someone who has felt distant from God because of your disability, I want to gently say this. Your worth in His eyes has never changed. You don't have to earn His love by being strong or cheerful or healed. His love meets you right where you are, in the middle of the exhaustion, the frustration, and the tears. Sometimes purpose doesn't mean doing great things. Sometimes it means learning to receive grace when all you can do is rest. I think about the story of the woman in Mark 5, the one who had been bleeding for 12 years. She had tried everything, spent all she had, and instead of getting better, she got worse. But she still reached out in faith just to touch the hem of Jesus' garment. That simple act changed everything. I used to think that story was just about the physical healing. But now I see it's also about the courage it takes to keep reaching out, even when you're worn down. Because faith for many of us isn't about certainty. It's about the willingness to keep reaching, even when you don't know what will happen next. And maybe that's what finding purpose in pain really means. Not pretending the pain doesn't exist, but choosing to reach out anyway. When we live with invisible disabilities, the world often tells us to stay quiet, to not make a fuss, to hide our struggles because they make others uncomfortable. But faith calls us to live authentically, to speak truth, to love deeply, even from places of brokenness. Sometimes purpose looks like telling your story so that someone else knows they're not alone. Sometimes it's setting boundaries that honor your body. Sometimes it's saying no without guilt because you've learned that rest is holy too. Purpose isn't always grand. It's often gentle. And in that gentleness, there's strength. I believe that God can use even our hardest days for something good, not by causing them, but by walking through them with us and helping us grow compassion for others. The empathy you've gained, the patience you've learned, the courage it takes to live each day with grace. Those are all sacred things. They may not erase the pain, but they give it meaning. And when you start to see your life through that lens, the question shifts from why me to what can I do with what I've been given? You might be surprised how powerful that shift can be. And at the end of this episode, I'm going to talk about that shift in me. But you see, when we start to understand that faith isn't about having everything together, it's about holding on even when everything falls apart. We give ourselves permission to be human. We stop trying to perform faith and we start living it. Living it looks like crying out in prayer when words fail you. It looks like giving yourself grace when you can't do as much as you used to. It looks like finding beauty in small mercies, a good moment, a kind word, a sunrise after a sleepless night. And it looks like trusting that your story still matters. So if you're listening today and you've felt forgotten, unseen, or spiritually tired, I want you to hear this. Your faith is not weak just because you struggle. Your worth is not diminished just because you can't do what others can. You are not broken beyond purpose. Faith doesn't erase pain, but it can transform it. It can turn despair into endurance and isolation into quiet communion. And while we may never fully understand why certain battles are ours to fight, we can still believe that there's beauty being written into our story, even in the hardest of chapters. Because sometimes finding purpose in the pain isn't about fixing what's broken. It's about discovering who you are in the midst of it. And that, my friends, is where true faith lives. And for me, over the last few years, since my breast cancer diagnosis, treatment, healing, all the things, I have felt at times distant from God. I have felt sometimes like He has forgotten me. And then, a friend said to me, He hasn't forgotten you. He's been beside you the whole time. You have survived so many things that should have ended your life. And it's because of God that you are still here. That shifted something in me. That made my drive to find my purpose even harder. So that is something that I have been working towards. And here soon, I will have an announcement that I think will be good. I think it is what God is calling me to do. And I am kind of nervous but excited about this prospect. So stay tuned. That is all I have for you today. But join me next week for another episode. And we're going to talk about all the things they don't tell you about pain management. So I love you and I'll see you then. Thank you for joining me today on Living Beyond the Invisible, A Walk with Heather. If this episode resonated with you, remember, you're not alone on this journey. You can connect with me on Facebook and TikTok, where I share more encouragement, advocacy, and behind-the-scenes glimpses of life with invisible disabilities. And if you'd like to support the podcast and gain access to exclusive content, you can also join me on Patreon. All of those links are in the show notes. Until next time, take gentle care of yourself, and I'll see you next week.